Hey, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Doug with News and Views by Doug. And today is Tuesday, July 7th, 2026. And there's a lot of things going on and a lot to talk about. So, this is where I give my observations and opinions on world events, politics, and pretty much anything else I feel like talking about. And I would hope that if you enjoy this video and my other videos, that you will like and subscribe. Really need your folks' support. So today, again, July 7th, the Persian Gulf, Iran, they're at it again. They just buried their Ayatollah, 3-4 days of his funeral. And it came out that one of their lead commanders, apparently he died in a car crash after leaving the funeral. And they also lost a Lieutenant Colonel, Mohsen Shahrian, and he was assassinated. And they're not sure if it was the Kurds, Iranian people, or even Mossad, but he was assassinated just the other day. So, if you're a military leader or politician in Iran, you don't want to be elected to the next level up because you'll go a level down permanently. But Iran decided to attack ships in the Straits of Hormuz that didn't take their route to the north towards Iran. They attacked 3 ships, including a Saudi oil tanker off the coast of Oman. And they hit the ships, heavily damaged them, but there's no one saying if anybody died. So the question is what is President Trump and the U.S. going to do about it? Are they going to retaliate, or are they going to let the Iranians get away with it again? So we'll see what happens. But also there's disturbing reports for us that the Iranian Quds force, they're somewhere in the hierarchy between the IRGC and their intelligence agency. Well, there's information coming out of Israel that a special unit called, the Mukhtar has been formed, and they're in Mexico. And they are working with the Mexican drug cartels, and their whole mission is to make it into the U.S. and kill President Trump, senior leaders of the United States, and others. So, we've gone after the Mexican cartels, and now the Iranians are allying themselves. Wonder what the Mexican government will do about it. Probably nothing. So we'll see if that's true and if it's going to, lead to anything. So it just never stops. Now, this morning, President Macron of France, he went to Syria to basically back the government of Syria, the new government, before he goes to the NATO meetings in Turkey. And they believe it's now ISIS terrorists. They lit off a couple of car bombs after he left his hotel. He wasn't injured. He wasn't there. But we'll show you video here of the car bombs going off.
And Syrian investigators are looking into explosions near French President Macron's hotel. Officials report at least 2 blasts near Macron's Damascus hotel this morning, shortly after he left to meet with Syria's president. Now, President Macron says his visit will continue. Foreign correspondent Tom Sufi Burridge has those details. Hi, Tom. What's the latest on these explosions and Macron's response?
Yeah, a pretty dramatic sequence of events, Diane. French President Emmanuel Macron was in Damascus, Syria, on his way to the NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey. Macron was there basically to give his support and France's support to the relatively new president, al-Shara, amidst a pretty remarkable transition, which is still ongoing in Syria after years of conflict and civil war. Now, what we know about what happened is that Macron had already left his hotel early this morning to go to meet al-Shara at the presidential palace in Damascus. And it was a short time after that there were 2 explosions not far from the hotel, believed to be car bombs, detonated remotely. One of those explosions was captured in video. You can see smoke rising over the Syrian capital. France's presidential office quickly came out to say that Macron was safe and sound and that his visit to Syria would continue. And then Macron, sometime later, posting on social media defiantly, praising the diversity of Syria as a country, saying nothing can smother the aspiration of its people to live in a united Syria. 18 people were injured in these two blasts, according to Syrian officials. Now, no group has claimed responsibility for the attack, but it comes just days after an explosive device was detonated in a cafe in central Damascus, and that attack killed 10 people and wounded 20 others. So I think at this point in time, there is fear of a wider campaign afoot to try and destabilize Syria, which under al-Shara is not only rebuilding its relationship with countries like France, but also the United States and many other allies across the region. Diane?
All right, Tom Sufi Burge, thank you.
Footage is crazy.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. عم صور قام صار انفجار ثاني. Allahu Akbar.
So that happened this morning. Now, something that's really disturbing is that we have Americans going to Iran and they have become traitors during wartime. We have one guy, Jackson Hinkle, on video in front of the Iranian crowds at the funeral, basically saying death to America. Then we have a woman by the name of Calla Walsh. She has worked for prominent Democrats in the United States, including Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. And she's also a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. She's in Iran right now. She went to the funeral and talking shit about the United States and praising the Ayatollah Khomeini as one of the greatest leaders in the world because he was anti-imperialism and other bullshit.
You guys all know who Jackson Hinkle is? Jackson Hinkle is an American, he's an American citizen, but he's an anti-American propagandist. This guy is in Iran right now, chanting down with the USA to massive crowds. I'm going to play a short video here of it.
Down with USA. Down with USA.
So this guy is an American citizen, popular on the extreme left, the leftist fringes. I don't even think he lives in America anymore. He travels around the world meeting with our enemies, and now he is in Iran, a country we are at war with, who has killed U.S. service members chanting down with USA. This guy should be arrested when he returns to America. And honestly, I don't know what the full statutes are. I don't know what laws they could get him on, but find one. Find one for this treasonous and traitorous behavior, going to Iran to chant down with USA as we've got dead service members and we are at war with these people, with this terrorist regime. These are literal terrorists running the country, and he is there chanting down with USA, being used as a prop by the IRGC and by the Iranian government. It is despicable. It is disgusting. And I want to know what you think in the comments below.
Concessions to Iran. It seems like this funeral will be one of the biggest funerals in all of world history. He was a leader to all people of the world who struggle against imperialism, against arrogance, against Zionism, against genocide. To me, he was the greatest anti-imperialist leader to have lived during my lifetime.
I don't even know where to begin with that one, so to help sort that out, I'm joined now by Newsweek's senior editor-at-large, Josh Hammer. Josh, I have a feeling that somewhere Jane Fonda was watching that video and going, "Girl, you got to pull that back a little with the treason stuff." I mean, at what point do we have to assume that leftism is just, I don't know, a mental illness for these people?
You know, Jane Fonda was actually the exact same thing that I was thinking of as I was watching that horrific clip that we were just subjected to. Frankly, Jane Fonda is blushing. I think somewhere, as you correctly say, this is just Jane Fonda taking on steroids to the very next level. I mean, frankly, where to begin with all that was just said. This is literal Iranian propaganda. This is literal propaganda for the world's #1 state-sponsored terror. You can see the URL right there, presstv.ir. This is Iranian regime media. This is an American who is over there, as you correctly note, on the 250th anniversary of this nation's founding, a nation that was conceived in liberty, a nation unique among all the modern nations, certainly at the time that it was founded, that held these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. You take that on the one hand, and you compare it with the apocalyptic Shiite supremacist jihadist theocracy that
These people are traitors to their country. And the question is, what should be done about them? My personal opinion is if they come back to the United States, arrest them, try them on treason charges, and big if, found guilty, execute them. Because that's what you do to traitors during wartime. You fucking execute them. Don't give them another platform. Don't let them survive. That's my opinion. What's yours? Now, this leads to the biggest thing going on. Yesterday, I published a video about Mitch McConnell, U.S. Senator. Mitch is in his 80s. His health has been failing for years, and he knows a lot of secrets. Well, he married Elaine Chao, who used to be the Secretary of Transportation in the first Trump administration. And then she resigned, and I don't know why she resigned. But she married Mitch, and they said that she has been his handler for years. And it makes you wonder, what did he tell her? Because he has top secret clearances. He has knowledge of war plans and politics and everything else. Well, back in June, mid-June, there was an emergency call to Mitch McConnell's house. And he went to the hospital. Well, we got another senator who claims that he spoke to Mitch the day after, and Mitch is doing well. He'll be back on the Senate floor anytime. Turns out it's all a lie. They just announced yesterday that Mitch is brain dead. They released the ambulance call where he was in CPR status all the way to the hospital. And he's been brain dead ever since. His staff even said that they were working with him, that he's okay, and they're working with him while he's in the hospital. Another lie. His wife, good old Cho, 3 days later, she took off to China, where she met with the vice president of China, communist China. Now, the question is why? She's not a political or government, entity. She can't negotiate anything. Why? It was highly published, Why is she in China meeting with this man? And is it a violation of the Logan Act, where if you're not authorized by the government to negotiate anything, meet with anybody for anything official, government-wise, you shouldn't be there. But here's the thing. Her husband's in the hospital, brain dead, and she just went to China, and everybody keeps saying she fled. But she's in China regardless, not by her husband's side. And because she probably has all the legal paperwork, she can't say take him off the machine. So here it is. Mitch has been laying there for almost 3 weeks, unaccounted for. It was an independent reporter, and you'll see the video where she basically blew open the entire story. Otherwise, the staff and Senate members would still keep saying, oh, no, Mitch is fine. He's in bed. We're talking to him. He's representing Kentucky. He's making plans.
Another video report here giving some bonus context to all of this. This situation is absolutely insane. Break it down here.
Desiree Townsend here again outside of George Washington University Hospital as we mark week 3 of the hospitalization of Senator Mitch McConnell following the June 14th medical emergency. As you can see behind me, the Capitol Hill police vehicles, these black vehicles, are still parked outside the hospital here, an indication that he is likely also still here. So after I first released the dispatch audio indicating that he was found unconscious and was given CPR for cardiac arrest, this story finally gained national attention. However, I don't think many Americans fully appreciate the seriousness of what may be at stake following Senator McConnell's medical emergency 3 weeks ago, or how Congress's lack of a constitutional mechanism to remove members for incapacity could have broader implications for the nation's governance and, most importantly, national security. This incredibly odd story also involves Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who stated to Politico that he had spoken with McConnell the day after his hospitalization and that he, quote, sounded good, end quote.
Do you believe that for a second? That John Thune spoke to McConnell one day after the heart attack and that he sounded good? He's been in the hospital for 3 weeks now. Once again, we don't even know if he's alive. I'm sorry. Baloney.
Now, this statement threw off the press for nearly 2 weeks, placating the public until I released the EMS dispatch audio showing the seriousness of this medical emergency. Now, given that Senator McConnell is still here in the hospital 3 weeks later, and as far as I know, he has not spoken with any other members of Congress, now puts this initial remark by Leader Thune into question. And look, he could have just been attempting to give Senator McConnell his privacy, but the better response could have been, I have not heard anything, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And this story gets even odder after I reported a couple days ago of a press release documenting that McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao, met with the vice president of China 3 days after his hospitalization. And to be clear, the issue is not merely that Elaine Chao went to China. The issue is she is a private citizen. She holds no official government position. She's married to a sitting U.S. senator who reportedly had a major medical emergency, and now she's meeting with one of China's highest ranking official 3 days later, all while the American public and possibly senior U.S. government officials in the Trump administration, as well as members of Congress, lacked clear information about his condition.
Okay, I got to say real quick, maybe I'm the best husband in the world. Maybe I'm the best spouse in the world. But if my wife, God forbid, ever had a heart attack, cardiac arrest, she's resuscitated, CPR, she's taken to the hospital, she's in the hospital still. You know what I'm not doing? I'm not going to China to meet with the vice president of the CCP. No, I'm sitting in the hospital at my wife's hospital bed, holding her hand, making sure that she's well taken care of. I'm not leaving the country, going to China or anything else. I'm sorry. What the hell is going on here?
So let me be clear about this. A meeting with China's vice president is not casual. Even if this was pre-planned, it signals Beijing views her as someone politically meaningful, yet she has no current role in the U.S. government. So why is she having these meaningful meetings with top government officials in China? Did she potentially carry messages to the CCP? Did she discuss U.S. policy? Or is she being treated as a back channel to non-public information, including her husband's health condition? Now, what I'm about to tell you next is incredibly important for all of you to understand. Like every sitting member of Congress, Senator McConnell has access to highly classified closed-door intelligence briefings on matters impacting U.S. national security. Those briefings can include topics such as military operations involving Iran, as well as classified discussions related to defense appropriations, an area of particular significance given that McConnell's role as a chair on the Senate Appropriations Committee. Now, if Senator McConnell potentially lacks the mental capacity and independent ability to perform his duties sitting as a U.S. senator, could classified information have been accessed, discussed, or even recorded by individuals hypothetically operating his office behind the scenes?
I bet.
More broadly, what safeguards exist to protect classified information when a member of Congress is no longer capable of independently carrying out the office responsibilities? Lastly, what information, if any, did Elaine Chao carry with her to meet with the vice president of the the People's Republic of China, Han Zhang, on June 17, 2026, 3 days after her husband, Mitch McConnell, reportedly went into cardiac arrest.
He needs to be replaced, as I said yesterday. They need to have an election. They need to bring in a new senator, even though it will only last till January, because the people of Kentucky need to be represented. The people of the United States need to be represented, and votes need to be taken, including the SAVE Act. This is a conspiracy of some type. And this Senator Thune, who lied to the American public, he needs to be censored at the minimum or removed from office for lying to the American public.
Ladies and gentlemen, on June 14th, spokesperson for Senator Mitch McConnell put out a statement where they said, quote, Senator McConnell was admitted to the hospital this morning. He is receiving excellent care. And that was it. That's all the information they gave. And then, the next day, when people started to ask Senate Majority Leader John Thune about Mitch McConnell, he said that he had spoken to him directly and that he sounded good. Thune said he wants to be back, but I'll defer to his staff as to when. But I'm hopeful that he'll be back this week. Well, that was 3 weeks ago, and it's becoming abundantly clear that we have been absolutely lied to thanks to the journalism of Desiree Townsend, who was able to obtain the actual EMS dispatch phone call. And we know for a fact now that this has been released, that Mitch McConnell suffered a massive heart attack and had to be resuscitated via CPR by paramedics.
Great communications. East Army supervisor, CPR in progress. Okay.
Now, let me ask you a question. Given Mitch McConnell's condition before this massive heart attack, and the fact that paramedics had to pummel his chest to bring him back to life, what do you think the chances are that the following day, John Thune spoke to him directly and that he sounded good? And what do you think are the chances that following that conversation, John Thune was left with the impression that Mitch McConnell would be returning to the Senate the very same week? I'll tell you what the chances are. The chances are absolutely zero. And now,
breaking news, a very reputable publication in Washington, D.C. just published Mitch McConnell's eulogy, as though Mitch McConnell has died. And while it seems like an error, perhaps, some type of mistake, they already had it pre-written. Has the whole do not use, a look back at Mitch McConnell's time in the Senate. You can see it right here in the Internet Archive. This from The Hill, one of the premier publications for inside Washington, D.C. And this happens sometimes where people get trigger happy and they publish something that they had pre-written, or perhaps they're publishing early before an embargo breaks. Has Mitch McConnell died? That is my question. We're hearing reports that Mitch McConnell is brain dead in the hospital and is no longer with us. While we don't know if he's on this mortal plane, that's what we are hearing from some very high-level people inside of the government and inside of the Trump White House. And so what's going to happen next? This is the last time we saw Mitch McConnell alive. The last time we saw Mitch McConnell alive, he couldn't even finish chairing his own committee meeting. He was humiliated by his own staffer. His lips were purple.
Wrap up after.
Hold here.
You can see the blood vessels had burst under his eyes. He had no blood circulation. He had to be told by staffers what to do.
Yeah.
Listen to that.
Yeah.
What is that? That's not a human noise.
Obviously, there's not a whole lot of time for a second round. So
Slurring his words. And then Mitch McConnell gets up in the middle of the hearing and runs away, just like Joe Biden used to do.
Then there needs to be an investigation into Elaine Chao. And why did she go to China and meet with the vice president of Communist China? Folks, I'm telling you, we got problems in this country. And Is President Trump going to act? Is anybody going to act? Is Kash Patel going to act? So here's the last story for the day. It came out yesterday that Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, people are calling for an ethics investigation and possible criminal investigation against her. Federal Supreme Court justices only make $300,000 or a little bit more, $300,000 per year. But it's now coming out that she's getting well over $1 million a year. And it's coming from different sources. You'll see in the video where it's coming from. But people are saying that she's basically using her position as a Supreme Court justice and grifting and accepting money and things. And, you know, Supreme Court justices are supposed to put themselves off from everybody. And she was seen at the Grammys because she was there for possibly getting an award. She apparently did an audio book and read someone else's book, and she was up for a Grammy for it. Don't know if she won. But she's sitting there hobnobbing with the celebrities from, I don't know where the hell they're from. I don't know if they're Hollywood or just the music types. But she's getting a lot of money for a Supreme Court justice who's only supposed to be making just over $300,000 per year. And she's not being accused of making wise investments, not like Nancy Pelosi and most of the other senators and Congress people. But it's just always amazed me that these people, especially politicians, they go into office poor or middle class or, you know, making decent money, but not great. And they always come out as multi-millionaires, sometimes billionaires. Where the hell's that money coming from? You know, we're seeing it with AOC. We're seeing it with Ilhan Omar. We're seeing it with Bernie Sanders. We're seeing all these people who really never had a real job other than public service. And yet they're worth millions now. Pelosi, you know, she came from money, her and her family. And she had the greatest stock portfolio in the history of the stock exchange. She was buying and selling and just making huge profits, more than anybody else in the world. Inside information, maybe? By the way, her husband just had a second major crash. The first one was a DUI crash. And this time they said he wasn't drunk, but he ran into a Tesla and destroyed his car. And he did a hit and run. And they found him about a quarter mile away. And they're investigating. But, you know, the thing about Brown Jackson, first black female elected to the Supreme Court. And, you know, there's really no problem with it other than she appears to be a DEI hire. Biden flat out said, I'm going to put a black woman in the Supreme Court. Not, I'm going to put the best person, best lawyer out there in the Supreme Court. He said, I'm going to put a black woman into the Supreme Court. And he didn't even choose the best one. This woman has been accused of not being the brightest flower in the garden. They're saying she's not very smart. And she makes statements all the time in the court cases where she proves that. She asks questions that make no sense to the case that she's hearing. She always votes against the conservative judges. And they're just saying that, you know, there should be someone else in that position. Doesn't matter if she's a female, doesn't matter if she's black, liberal, doesn't matter. Just not her. They said she's not at that level of being a lawyer or being a judge. But you'll see in the video, where'd all the money come from? Last story of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is currently facing an overwhelming amount of pressure as allegations of corruption and perhaps even bribery, I kid you not, are beginning to make their way to the surface. Today, we're going to break it all down. This is a massive story here. First off, let's get right into this. Fox News this morning is running this article. Fox News says, Ketanji Brown Jackson's latest spotlight moment fuels accusations that she might be forgetting her day job, that of a Supreme Court justice. Instead, critics are saying the people's champion, that's Ketanji Brown Jackson, I guess, that now she's working on becoming a celebrity. She just wants to be a famous socialite. We had this report also. This is what we're talking about. Yesterday afternoon, Ketanji Brown Jackson was featured on the front cover of the Essence magazine. Presumably, this is a magazine for women. It's the Essence magazine. Ketanji Brown Jackson, the people's champion, is what they call her. We had this report a couple months ago, back in February of 2026. Look at this. Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn is urging Chief Justice Roberts to launch an investigation into Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson over her attendance at the Grammy Awards, where celebrities voiced their anti-ICE rhetoric throughout the show. Ketanji Brown Jackson went to the Grammys. She's on these left-wing magazines. She's going to the parties in Hollywood, the Grammys. She's bumping elbows with the anti-ICE, anti-American celebrities. But okay, here's a good question. Some of you might be asking, so what's the big deal? Is this really a problem? Well, folks, I'll tell you what the big deal is. It's because not only is Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson leveraging her position on the Supreme Court to try to become a celebrity, to try to become an influencer, but more importantly, it seems as if Ketanji Brown Jackson has been leveraging her position on the Supreme Court to make a ton of money, and she has made a ton of money. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a report right here coming out of the Morse Report this morning. Take a look at this. Exclusive. Since joining the Supreme Court in June of 2022, about 4 years ago on the nose, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's net worth has allegedly increased by approximately $5.7 million. That is more than $1.4 million per year, despite a Supreme Court justice's salary being only $306,000 per year. Somehow she's making $1.4 million. Over 4 times as much. Justice Jackson has allegedly leveraged her position on the Supreme Court to negotiate book deals, media appearances, royalty agreements, luxurious gifts, generous travel reimbursements, and speaking fees. She's making $1.4 million a year leveraging her position on the Supreme Court, folks. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson has pretty much been abusing her position on the Supreme Court to pillage this nation.
Is anybody? So anyways, enjoy the videos that I'll include here. As I always tell you, be safe. Take care of each other. Be aware of your surroundings, because there's people out there that want to hurt us. And I'm just saying, be safe and take care of each other. Today's quote comes from the First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt, about the United States Marines. And this was during the Second World War. The quote is, "The Marines I have seen around the world have the cleanest bodies, the filthiest minds, the highest morale, and the lowest morals of any group of animals I have ever seen. Thank God for the United States Marine Corps." Thank you, Mrs. Roosevelt. We take that as a great compliment. Okay, folks, I'm going to let you go. You take care of yourselves. Please be safe out there. Stay out of trouble. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.